Hey guys, Pulsating Sack back here with our CI variation, mainly because it was highly requested in previous videos, and I want to deliver it to my subs, make builds that they want to play. This will be our last variation until we can get some substantial patch notes changes, because we've just about exhausted every gem / support. I've changed the passive tree more times than I can count. This video will be more in-depth than the last video to cover everything thus far, and to just catch anyone up that is new to the channel. You can do just about anything in the game with this build. Keep in mind it is made for mapping, specifically blowing up fully juiced breaches. However, you can do any boss in the game as well. Here, I'm going to show you a quick ritual boss kill. Now this boss does take a bit longer because we have to build up power charges and the fight resets halfway through, etc. But it's still fairly fast. So, with that in mind, let's get started. So let's start with the tree. If you've been following from the last video, you will see quite a bit of changes here. But we're just going to cover the whole tree, and then I'll go into the changes and some other things we've tested. But starting with the Ascendancy, we haven't changed anything here. We're still taking Lead Me Through Grace, I'm the Blizzard, I'm the Thunder, and Sunder. Coming up, we're still going to take Essence of the Storm, Essence of the Mountain. We're taking all the good ES evasion nodes up here because we are CI, whereas in the last variation we had more max life, so we really didn't need to take all of them. But here's the thing, if you want to run CI with 2500 ES and have more damage, then more power to you. But CI does have a few weaknesses, and you will need to watch out for some additional map nodes that you didn't necessarily need to watch out before, as max life, evasion / a little bit of ES. Specifically Burning Ground. It's really annoying as a map mod, as CI. Like, I just won't even play Burning Ground right now. And then increased stun buildup on the map can really ruin your day. You could just get locked in place for what feels like an eternity, and it just doesn't feel good. Anyway, I'm getting off track. We're going to come down here. We're going to take our power charge nodes, our melee attack blind node, and then our ES evasion nodes. Now this is a super strong node, and you will be playing with a full ES helmet and not an ES evasion hybrid for this reason specifically. So coming back up, we're going to take this cluster, which is super strong for attack damage and attack speed. Coming up, we're going to take Resonance. Now stop here for a second because this is what makes the build work. We're going to be turning Frenzy charges into power charges in combination with a gem called Combat Frenzy, which we will cover in the gem section. But then we just come up, we take the attack speed, reduced cost of skills, and more ES evasion nodes. Coming through here, we're going to take Eternal Youth, more ES evasion nodes up. We're going to path the CI, take the single, for one extra skill point, we're going to take the extra jewel socket. Coming back down, we're going to take the power charge node, the full quarterstaff node into Herald. We are running acrobatics with this build. Evasion nodes here into dexterity and attack speed down to this jewel socket, and then some melee damage nodes here. Now you have attack speed as well here, so you could try out these, but I personally just like the flat damage. So let's cover some of the changes from the last build. To make CI work, we had to take more survivability. I don't want to be running around with 2500 ES and dying to just random things. So we mainly dropped our crit nodes. So in the last build, we have crit here. We have these crits up here. And then we have, this cluster down here as well. And then we also dropped a single power charge node up here. I don't even think you will notice this being gone because we still just one-shot everything on the map anyway. The crit nodes, however, you will notice specifically on bosses because we did lose quite a bit of damage. Those clusters add up quite a bit, especially for bosses with Tempest Bell. So honorable mentions, we did try Meditate out. You can't play Meditate with Eternal Youth. Like, it just doesn't work if you take that node. So we dropped I Am the Thunder and Eternal Youth if you want to take Meditate. And then you could potentially drop Grim Feast as well out of the gems and maybe play with, something else like a blasphemy setup with auras like Enfeeble or Temporal Chains. Like, you have options, right? So there are other ways to play out the tree and play out the gems. Feel free to try out different things. So maybe you want more survivability, so we would probably pad up here, grab this, grab the int for extra damage with our gloves. Maybe you want more damage, you can remove some of the evasion nodes, probably this node up here. You won't get too many points, but you could fill out the rest of this tree. You could go back into some more crit. Like I said, there are options here. Nothing is going to truly make or break the build. So really figure out, like, with your gear and your play style, what you want. Maybe you want more survivability, maybe you want more damage, etc. But yeah, we have options. So this covers the passive section. I will have the written guide up to date as well. I'll have another variation in that guide. So now let's cut to the gear. Here's the gear. We made a big change with our weapon. Now, in the last video, we talked about taking Mana Leech on the tree and other ways to reduce mana issues we were potentially having. However, we solved them completely by just taking melee skills off our weapon. Now, I know that sounds stupid, but let me get to it. I think an easy workaround is just going for a much higher physical damage base without melee skills versus a lower physical damage base with melee skills. I mean, if you have multiple mirrors to spend on the weapon, then feel free to check out the old video for ways to address any potential mana issues. But we had previously had a 650 PDPS weapon with melee skills, and we dropped it for an 850 PDPS weapon without melee skills. Just for comparison, an 850 PDPS weapon with no melee skills is, 40 to 50 divines. If you want to add melee skills, let's say +4, not even like +6 or +7, you're looking at 400 plus divines, maybe 350 plus divines, at least for the ones I was looking at. It only just goes up from there. Now this weapon, even with dropping the melee skills, was a substantial DPS increase. I don't have the super specific raw numbers, but I think for every 50 PDPS that you add, you can drop 1 melee skill on your weapon. So let me give you an example. If you have a 600 PDPS weapon with +4 melee skills, I think getting a weapon with 650 PDPS with 3 melee skills will be a DPS upgrade. And this is just based on some of the weapons I've tried out with this build specifically. If you change anything in the build, or if you have something else going on, then that may not be the case. But that's how it seemed to work for this build, right? So, also, I think it's a must to have Mana Leech on your weapon. So at the very least, you want Mana Leech here. Coming to the rest of the gear, I would still aim to get around 150% rarity if you can. There's no real reason to get above 150 because the way we juice our breaches, you will have rarity on your maps from the quantity/rarity hybrid prefix. So let's start with the rings. I would focus hard damage on your rings, specifically breach rings, because we can stack the lightning modifier. So we want lightning damage to attacks, and then you can get rarity on your rings, because with ingenuity, that's going to skyrocket that. You can limit the amount of rarity you need on the rest of your gear, and then we'll just go with resistances. And then in a perfect world, I'd get rid of the mana and the mana regen and get like intellect or dexterity or something like that. But we're not too worried about that. Chest piece is just going to be an evasion energy shield hybrid. Now, you pretty much solve your resistances through your rings with ingenuity, so you can completely ignore resistances on your chest piece. Go for dexterity and intellect as high as you can get, with as high as of an energy shield evasion base you can get. Super easy. The amulet, we're going to still anoint Doomsayer. I did play without Doomsayer for about 20 maps, and man, did I feel a difference in the coverage of like the screen pops. So I would still highly recommend this anoint, which is awesome because it is super cheap. Other than that, I mainly focused on defensive nodes here with a bit of rarity to hit our 150%. So max energy shield, increased max energy shield, evasion, all of these are good choices. And then you want +3 melee skills here for sure. We don't want to drop that on the amulet. Just dropping it on the weapon seemed to be enough to fix any mana issues we potentially have it. The Headpiece, I still haven't replaced it since I switched to CI. I just switched to CI last night or the night before, something like that. So this helmet isn't the best because it has max life and chaos res. But essentially, you want the highest energy shield possible. You want intellect, maybe max mana instead of max life. Don't get too concerned with every stat on it. Just try to get as highest energy shield as possible. Now gloves, it's gonna be hand of wisdom in action. We can't replace these, even if the level is level 52. It seems a bit low, but we can't replace them. Ingenuity, we can't replace that either. It's just too good to replace in its current state. Now boots, I do get resistances on boots, and with just the boots and the 2 rings, that completely covers my resistances. As you can see, we're actually overcapped on fire by a decent amount. Cold is pretty spot on, and then lightning is pretty good. But yeah, so we do cover our resistances with just that gear, and then we get dexterity, course movement speed, and then max mana is not bad here as well, right? So the gear is fairly expensive, right? So let me just make a remark to that. Closer to season launch or an early access reset, I will make a cheaper variation of the build. I've already been messing around with it. If nothing gets hard nerfed, you can make this build work with 15 exalts or less, to be honest, like 10, 15 exalts. But yeah, that video will probably come out closer to a season launch, because right now we're already a month and some days into this one. So in my opinion, there's no real reason to put out a video like that. But yeah, so let's go ahead and cut to the gems. All right, here are the gems here. Not much has changed with our gems. As I mentioned, all this will be in the written guide section if you don't want to watch the whole thing. But the only major change we added was we put concentrated effect in instead of primal armament. We did have primal armament in here. And then we got martial tempo, rage, electrocute, and crescendo. We are getting our electrocute from Tempest Flurry. Charge staff is going to be our main shock. So we have persistence, overcharge, conduction, and then we have shock siphon for more recovery of energy shield, and then coursing current to spread our shock. Flicker strike with heft, heavy swing, perpetual charge, ambush, and close combat. We could probably get rid of ambush now that we're not playing with a lot of crit, and maybe add something else. I'll look into that and then update the written guide if so. Combat Frenzy with Perfusion, Wind Dancer with Pin, Blind, and Maim. Herald of Ice with Innervate, Cold Mastery, Magnified Effect, which is important, and then Lightning Infusion to get a bit more shock. Grim Feast with Clarity, and then we actually have Blink in with Ingenuity, Second Wind, Herald of Thunder with Long Shot, Lightning Mastery, Glaciation, and Ice Bite. Now, we do have some things you can change around. If you don't want to play with Blink, you could play with the Blasphemy setup, as I mentioned earlier. We have Excess Spirit that we just don't really have room to use anything with. Like, you could run an Unset Ring and throw in something else, but honestly, it's really hard to give up Breach Ring. So you could drop Blink, you could throw in Blasphemy with an Enfeeble or Temporal Chain setup. We took Ghost Dance out because it doesn't work with overcapped ES, but if you feel safe using that instead of Blink, you could have that in there. And then we actually have our Tempest Bell down here. Now, we don't use Tempest Bell while we map. We only use it for bossing. It's just not needed while mapping, so we do keep it in our inventory. So if we get to a boss, we'll swap it out for Grim Feast or whatever, but we do keep it here. If you want to take Blink out and just have Bell in full time, so you don't have to keep changing it out, that's an option too. But with Bell, we play with Primal Armament, Leverage, Overabundance, and Font of Rage. So, like I said, there's been no super big changes with the gems, and all of this will be in the written guide, so I'll have the link down below in the description for that. So I just want to say thank you to all that have supported me so far. Just started my channel like 2 weeks ago, and I feel like I'm growing pretty fast. I'm definitely enjoying the process. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully you all like the video. Sub if you're not. I do stream over at Twitch. I'll have the link to that in the description as well. But yeah, I plan on doing a ton of videos for this game, and I can't wait to see y'all in the comments. All right, peace out.